So, learning the English language is a universal requirement whether it be locally or globally due to its significance in the current time. Like most languages, the English language has four foundations that factors in an individual's English language proficiency, which are speaking, reading, writing, and listening. These four foundations all incorporate vocabulary in its usage and its application. Language learners are having difficulties in improving one, if not more, of the four foundations in English, due to the inability or lack thereof in enhancing the vocabulary. This further emphasizes the importance of vocabulary in language acquisition. Studies were conducted on how education and, to an extent, learning can be further improved upon to overcome the difficulties in vocabulary acquisition. Classroom-based learning is still regarded as the best way in improving an individual's English proficiency, but just like any medium, it has its limitation in either its concept or execution. Classroom settings are limited in its creativity and freedom of learning the English language. Another spectrum of learning other than through a classroom setting is said to be able to provide education in an entertaining way. This alternate learning method is called tangential learning. Tangential learning is not a process of learning through teaching. Rather, it is through a process by which individuals self-educate themselves in a topic that they are exposed to in a context that they already engaged in and enjoy. Tangential learning is the idea that aims to facilitate a portion of the audience into self-educating when they are introduced to a topic in the context they already find exciting. Due to the scarce research that primarily focuses on the lexical expansion aspect within the alternative learning method among specified types of students, the following research questions were designed to specifically address the application of tangential learning for the English language vocabulary acquisition for university students. How effective is tangential learning in vocabulary acquisition? How viable is tangential learning as an alternative learning method for university students? Education on vocabulary is important due to the fact that having a robust vocabulary not only improves all areas of communication, but it is also part of the aforementioned foundation of language proficiency, which is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This further insinuates the point that properly providing information on and about vocabulary through methods such as tangential learning can wholly benefit education as a whole. Tangential learning is still a developing concept for alternative learning options and mostly dabbles in its application through video games. Being obscure has made tangential learning harder to research purely due to the fact that not much new information has been contributed into the progression in this area of topic. Due to the negative connotation that video games often have, such as being harmful in nature due to how influential it can be towards the player, and the outdated perception that video games are nothing more than just a mindless hobby, has made it difficult for this study and any other previous one to be taken seriously. According to Price and FARKHAN, they agreed that new vocabulary could also be acquired through tangential learning due to the variety of word usage and manner of speaking used in the medium that it is applied. In agreement with this, Horowitz also noted that the measurement and comparison for alternative learning, such as tangential learning, has, with classroom-based learning, is easier to be distinguished in terms of vocabulary due to the increasing amount of mediums available on a daily basis for the general consumer, such as video games and television shows. Studies of language learning are now finding ways to incorporate video games, movies, and even music into an effective way of educating that facilitates learning for the youth in relation with their interests. Butcher 2017. Video games provide an option to explore concepts and knowledge that people are not exposed to conventionally. Breivik 2016. According to DeHaan, Reed, and Kawada, video games nowadays are more apparent with proper stories, exploration of ideas, and wordings that further enhance the player's experience, such as period pieces. This is easier achieved because video games can provide a more active engagement with the players through the gameplay and story, in which both are able to facilitate learning. Tarkovsky, Miller, Sprunk, and Slavin 2017. The theoretical framework that will be implemented for this research was based on the study of Lee. In digital game-based learning, believed that story-driven games, such as Her Story, which was used in her study, can stimulate an integrative development of the 4 foundations in English language proficiency, and that games are able to create an immersive context for language learners in acquiring vocabulary through incidental process such as tangential learning. Lee adapted the process of experimentation through a specified video game titled Her Story. After the participant partake in the experiment, which in this case is playing through it, they are then interviewed through specific questions such as grammar and vocabulary-related ones. This research will be adapting the model used by Lee and will be using a mixed method of experimentation, qualitative data, and quantitative data. This method is the most ideal since the research will be able to observe and identify the effectiveness of tangential learning for vocabulary acquisition through the experimentation and qualitative data, while the viability of tangential learning as an alternative learning method could be identified through the quantitative data. University students are chosen for English language vocabulary acquisition through tangential learning that is applied outside of the classroom. The reasoning in choosing university students in the study is because 1. Studies on tangential learning in English language vocabulary acquisition for university students is scarce, and 2. The freedom and accessibility of university students are more ideal for alternative learning outside of the classroom. The research will be using a questionnaire for the quantitative data collection through a Likert scale format. The questions will be formed based on the viability of tangential learning as an alternative learning method for university students. The questions will be formulated and then proceed to be written in a survey through means such as Google Form, also known as Google Docs. Additionally, the research will be conducting an experiment where participants will be given a game titled The Stanley Parable to play and reach a certain threshold within the game. The Stanley Parable is an interactive drama and walking simulator designed by American developer Davey Werden. The game has no combat or other action-based sequences. Instead, the gameplay involves guiding a silent protagonist named Stanley alongside a narrator. As the story progresses, the player is confronted with diverging pathways. The player may disobey the narrator's suggestion, which will then be incorporated into the story. Depending on the choices made, the player will encounter different endings before the game restarts. The threshold mentioned is dependent on the endings that the participant achieved. The data from the experiment will be extracted during the interview session. The aim of conducting an interview for this research is to gain a more in-depth answer from the respondent's elaboration to the question that will be asked, which correspond directly to the game.